Welcome children. Take out your real English book. Part 7, Chapter 15, Helen Keller. Before explaining this chapter, let me tell you that in my previous video, I have already explained how Helen became deaf and blind and how she was inspired by her teacher, Miss Annie Sullivan. Now, let's begin the chapter. The day Helen learned to spell water, a new inspiration set in and her progress in learning was multiple manifold. Now, from the day Helen had learned to spell the word water, a new inspiration set in her mind and she began to show her progress towards learning. That experience changed her attitude towards learning, and from that day, what happened? Her attitude towards learning had fully changed. That day, Helen was so inspired that within the next few hours, she learned the spelling of 30 new words, which included mother and teacher. Now, that day, Helen, she got so inspired that she had learned in the next few hours, she had learned more 30 new words. It included mother and teacher. Annie taught her to spell baby when Helen touched her younger sister. Now, Miss Annie Sullivan, she taught her to spell the word baby when Helen used to touch her younger sister. She even spelled out Helen Keller. Now, she even was able to spell out Helen Keller. Helen recalled later, I was born again. That day, I had been a little ghost in a no world. Now I knew my name. I was a person. I could understand people and make them understand me. Now, later, Helen had recalled that the day she had learned to spell, she thinks that she was born again or she was reborn that day. And she was, because she was a little ghost, means in a previous life she was one just like a little ghost in a no world, but after that she came to know she could tell her name. That means she knew her name. She was a person and she could understand people and she could make understand and other people could also understand her. One morning Helen spelled out complete sentence, doll is on bed. One morning what happened? Helen, she spelled out the complete sentence, that is doll is on bed. That means she was, one morning what happened? Helen was able to spell out a full sentence. She was able to read out the sentence. Motivated by the progress that Helen has made, Annie said, tomorrow I shall teach you to read. Now, Helen's progress motivated her teacher Annie so much that Annie said that from the next day she will teach her to read. Annie began teaching Helen to read. She first read raised letter, later read with braille. Now Annie, she began to teach Helen how to read. She first read, means Helen first started reading raised letter and then with braille she started reading. She learned to write with both ordinary as well as braille typewriters. Now Helen learned to write with both ordinary as well as braille typewriter. She was only on the path to become a well-educated person. Now what happened? Helen, she was the only on her path, means she was the only one child on her path. She was to become a well-educated person. She was given all possible opportunities to develop her abilities and Helen made the best use of them. Now Helen was given all sorts of, means all possible ways of opportunity, all sorts of opportunities she was given and to develop her abilities, and Helen made use of them. Helen developed great confidence and she even visited President Cleveland at the White House. Helen, she developed great confidence in her mind and then she visited President Cleveland at the White House. In 1890, at the age of about 10, Helen moved to the Perkins Institute. Now, when Helen was 10 years old, that means it was the year 1890. Helen went to Perkins Institute. Here, Annie continued to teach her. Here, her teacher Annie continued to teach her. Helen made friends with other blind children in the institute. Her loneliness began to disappear and her progress in learning improved. Now what happened? What he did? She made friends with other blind children. Now her loneliness disappeared and she began to show her progress in learning. She learned Latin, German and arithmetic. Now she learned Latin, German and arithmetic. In 1894, Helen and Annie met John D. Wright and Dr. Thomas Humason, who were planning to set up a school to teach speech to the deaf in New York City. Now, it was the year 1890. Helen and Annie, they met John D. Wright and Thomas Humason. These two persons, they were planning to set up a school to teach speech to the deaf in New York City. Helen attended the Wright Humason School for the Deaf. Now Helen, she attended the Wright Humason School for the Deaf. Unfortunately, Helen's speech never really improved beyond the sounds that only Annie and others very close to her could understand. But unfortunately, no one was able to understand her speech except Annie, and very close people who were very close to Helen only could understand Helen's speech. But the fact that she could communicate was encouraging enough for Helen to move ahead in life. But it was the fact that Helen could communicate, and it was very encouraging enough that Helen could show progress in her life. Helen wished to study in college, but before that she had to take admission in another school that could prepare her for the college. Now Helen wanted to study in college, but before that she had to take admission in another school that would prepare her for college. Since Helen could not afford the fee, Mark Twain, the famous author of Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and some of his friends paid for her education. Now as Helen could not afford her fees, so Mark Twain, who was he? He was a famous writer, and who had written Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and some of the friends, they have paid for Helen's education. In 1896, Helen moved on to the Cambridge School for Young Ladies in Massachusetts. Now 1896, what happened? Helen went to Cambridge School for Young Ladies in Massachusetts. This was a great achievement for a lady who was blind. Now what was it? It was a very great achievement for the lady who was blind and could barely produce sounds for communication. Barely, what could they do? They could produce sounds for communication. Helen worked very hard at school and did not disappoint her benefactor. Now Helen, what he did? He worked very hard at school and did not disappoint the benefactor. She began writing poems and stories. Now Helen, what she started? She started to write poems and even stories. Shortly before her examination, Helen lost her father. Now shortly what happened? Before the exam? Helen lost her father. Although emotionally disturbed, Helen did her best in that. Now she was very Helen was emotionally disturbed and she did her best in the examination. Annie could not accompany Helen to the examination. Now Annie, she couldn't accompany Helen to the examination hall. A teacher spelled out the question in Helen's hand. And now one teacher, what happened? One teacher spelled out the question in Helen's hand, and Helen typed out the answer. And Helen, what she did? She typed out the answer. The following week, she learned that she had passed all the surveys. Now, that following week, she came to know that she had passed all the examination. In 1900, Helen entered Radcliffe College, becoming the first deaf-blind child to have ever enrolled at an institution of higher learning. Now, it was the year 1900 when Helen entered Radcliffe College, and she was the first deaf-blind child to have enrolled her name at an institution for higher education. The girls in her class were friendly, and they even elected her vice president of the. Now, the girls in her class, they were quite friendly, and they elected her as the vice president of the class. Here, Helen began to write about her life. Now here what happened? Helen started to write about her life. She wrote the story both in Braille and on a normal typewriter. Now Helen wrote the story both in Braille and even on a normal typewriter. The story of my life was edited by John Mackay, who later married Annie. Now story of my life, it was edited by John Mackay, and who had later married Annie. The writing was published in the magazine in 1903 and she was paid for it. Now the writing, it was published in a magazine in 1903 and afterwards she was paid for it. Helen once said, "We the blind are as indebted to Louis Braille as mankind is to Gutenberg." Now Helen's what she had tell, she has quoted a word that is sentence, that is, "We the blind," that means the blind person, they are indebted to Louis Braille in such a way that as mankind are indebted to Gutenberg. On June 20th June 1904, Helen graduated from Radcliffe College. Now see, it was the day, that was 28th of June 1904. Helen had completed her graduation from Radcliffe College. Helen became the first deaf blind child to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. Now Helen, she was the first deaf blind child to earn a Bachelor of Arts degree. Helen now felt that she must educate people on ways to help the blind. Now Helen, what she felt, that she would educate the people on the ways to help the blind. Her main goal in life was to spread awareness regarding the poor, neglect state of blind. Now, what was her main goal in life? Her main goal in life, that she would spread awareness which was regarding the poor and neglect the state of blind. Her innate abilities and their aspiration. Innate abilities and even their aspiration. She had to raise funds not only to sustain a living for herself but also to start project to remove darkness from the lives of other blind people. Now what she had to do? She had to collect funds not only to sustain her living for herself but also to start a project to remove the darkness from the lives of other blind people. This she thought she would do best by giving lectures and writing. Now what she thought? That it would do best by giving lectures and even writing. She strongly felt that she must give the others that what she had gained from Annie. Now what she strongly felt, that she must give the others what she had gained from Annie. Now take out your diary, write chapter 15, Helen Keller, part 2, that is page number 94, 95 and 96. Explain, homework, revise it. And with this, I am ending my today's class. Goodbye.